Les is a member of Eagle Group. He is an invaluable member of our community and an invaluable aid to veteran job seekers, having gone through the process several times himself, and actually worked on his own internal promotion strategy. He has a lot of value to offer and add. So we're grateful to have Les to present tonight on veteran value. Les, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so the topic that we actually have for today came from the discussion in the previous section in career track, and it was about introvertism, and we had quite a bit of discussion on it. So, I mean, I really love the fact that these topics are unearthed in this forum and that we can track down some items. Now, what I also say is, again, some of these topics are longer than the period of time to discuss. So, I always encourage folks to take a look for themselves, do research for themselves. But hopefully this is a shortcut to help you look at where you can find that information. I do cite the sources. So without further ado, then let me click and progress forward. So just like each session, I try to go through with a somewhat forward approach, and we're going to cover quite a bit in a short amount of time. So what I will say on this subject, when we talk about introvertism, right, I try to be inclusive of many sources of information. I think that gives a diversification of ideas and thoughts. But I'll tell you for a fact during my research that this subject is less quantitative as maybe I would like to have been, and more qualitative. But I tried to incorporate what I thought would be, one, interesting, two, what I think that would help, again, folks either in transition or moving up. Again, those are our focuses. And I again, try to synthesize that into something meaningful in the amount of time that we have together. I do encourage you to conduct your own research if you're looking at, that introspective, being able to apply that to your situation, or bringing it, up in discussion with coaches and mentors as part of this career track group. So again, I think that this would be a good start. Again, I had some fun doing some of the research. So let's kick it off. So the first thing I think I always start with is the definition, right? So who's an introvert and so forth. Even the definition of this I thought was pretty interesting. And again, I'll jump into a couple items. I think there's some myths out there, and in some cases maybe they've been publicized or socialized by extroverts. But again, I think that'll be interesting to share out. From a strength standpoint, again, because we define it, are there strengths that, again, make introverts invaluable? And I think that there definitely are. And just like anything in Eagle Group, if we don't capitalize, then why do it at all? So again, I've tried to synthesize a lot of this information, key on some items, and again, I hope it's helpful at the end, and you can comment it. So let's jump right into the definition. What you can see here is a wall of words, right? But I wanted to give you that, and the source here is Merriam-Webster. And the key thing here is that when you read this, it's characterized by a reserved or quiet person, right? I don't know when this definition was created, but it almost seems like it has a negative connotation. And the reason why I provided the whole excerpt is that you see down here at the bottom in the 1900s, I don't know who this Carl guy was, but it seems like, again, it was described way back when, right? So when I look at this, I go, well, great. We pretty much already knew that. Was it really helpful? Probably not. So then I started to say, well, what else, right? So I really dove into it, and what I found was kind of a better description. Again, let me kind of go through this, but it talked about the social, the introspective, anxious, and restrained. Again, there was many authors, many other ways of describing it, but I thought this was a good one that ran through the gamut of classification. So I'll go through it quickly. The social, they tend to be what we figure as the classic introvert. Again, alone. The reason why I have it as energy is that's where they gain their energy. They don't gain their energy from social events and so forth, because they actually find that quite exhausting, right? If they are going to be social, they're going to do it with close-knit friends. And again, they feel drained when they're going out into public scenarios. That's just not where they get their center. All right. They don't feel like that's the place where it makes them feel most comfortable. Now, from an introspective standpoint, they're a lot of times in their own head. They're thinkers, right? And a lot of times people associate introspective introverts with being very rich, complex folks. They're very self-aware. And again, when you talk about introvertism and you're talking about also, social, introspective, what they also a lot of share in common is that they're thinking about, what is it like to go and talk? I mean, let's just tie it to one of people's biggest fears is talking in front of an audience. And I think that's tied to being an introvert, right? You're thinking about what other people are thinking about you. Yeah, there you go. It's even exhausting saying that. The next category is anxious. So again, not only aware or thinking a lot about those social engagements and so forth, it actually creates a sense of anxiety for this type, right? So they actually try to avoid social events. They'll actually say no or decline invitations, right? And these folks tend to be very cognitive. So again, they're looking at not only what are the interactions or positioning or how they're dealing with social events, but they're also probably thinking 3 steps ahead about what the consequences of screwing up or giving a presentation and not having your punchlines delivered or having a value at the end, right? And then you have restrained. I think this one's kind of an interesting one because I think we also know folks that are introverts, but it really takes time for them to warm up to people, right? They're very selective of who their close-knit friends are. And these are also folks that think a lot before they actually speak. They may be the ones in conversations that actually are the last ones to deliver their thoughts, right? So I think this was a little bit for me more descriptive than the Webster, right? But even then I go, well, okay, great. But it sounds like something that maybe I wouldn't want to be. So, when scanning through this, I go, are there myths out there? Are there things that, again, people say about introverts that maybe aren't true? So I thought these were kind of the top. The first being introverts are not necessarily socially awkward, right? And the myth that they may be probably isn't true, right? There's plenty of introverts, and I'll show here later, that just because they're not in social or they're just not the spotlight of the conversation or, really, begging for the attention doesn't mean that they couldn't, right? Or that they haven't. And introverts don't hate people. It's a lot of times misinterpreted. Introverts oftentimes avoid small talk because they don't want to be considered inauthentic. I mean, that's a key thing as well, is that they're very mindful about what they say, right? Introverts aren't rude, right? Again, it drains folks that aren't used to being in a social gathering, constantly trying to be aware of their surroundings, who they just meet. Are they supposed to remember what they just said, or an engagement, or even a commitment to meeting up with someone later? Was it genuine? Was it true? Right? Someone say, "Hey, we'll catch up for lunch." Did that mean next week or tomorrow? Right? Maybe it was even left open-ended. Right? Introverts don't need to be fixed in a lot of cases, right? And I think that's just true oftentimes of like military people, right? When there's like, oh, you just need to change. Well, I don't know if we necessarily need to be fixed. I think that we can always learn and grow and develop, but sometimes we're at our best when we embrace our own nature, right? And again, if we know our sources of strength, our sources of energy, that can be a great deal of empowerment versus trying to be a chameleon or having that imposter syndrome that we sometimes talk about. Again, you're looking for things that fill up your tank and don't drain you out. And that's when you have your best engagements. That's when you have your most successful careers. And that's when you feel like you're in control, regardless of your approach. Now, the last one I think is pretty interesting as well. Introverts don't wish they were extroverted. Sure, they want sometimes, envy the ability to quickly say a very smart thing, right? Or to be able to jump into any situation and literally be able to thrive in it. But most times, right, introverts, take delight. Again, they have comfort in being able to collect their thoughts, break away, and have that silence. So again, I think these things coming together are pretty interesting, because when you talk about the military, right? Do we default to extroverts, right? I mean, let's face it, all these people seem to be yelling, right? And I took Marines as a point of emphasis. So, when I think about this, okay, there's extroverts, there are introverts, military. Well, what's this word? Ambivert, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that right? So I found this diagram. You have extrovert, introvert, and then I go, oh, okay, interesting, another vert, if you will. And in the middle here, it kind of shows the in-between area. And I think this can probably apply to most of us, right? Especially having a military background. I was like, I don't know if you can be a true introvert being in the military. You're called to action, right? And you're called to lead. The flip side of that is, I think if you're a true extrovert all the time, I think that's kind of the misnomer that people have about military. You're always yelling, you're always barking out orders. And I found in the military, there's a lot of introverted people, a lot of smart people that, again, have a lot of those traits that we just rattled off. And I find myself probably more in the middle section, just personally. I think that I can choose times where, again, I can go into a social setting, present, information, but I also do feel like I get energy from researching, being able to have comfort in knowing what I'm trying to accomplish and being able to devise that and build strategies, right? And the extrovert comes in because I have to socialize, I have to gain that momentum, inspire folks to do better. And, in the end, I hope that the team succeeds and everything grows, right? So great. Now I've just created something from a simple definition that I'm not sure if really helped us. And then I went all over the place with the research, right? And that's where I want to caution folks is that rather than going into even more of these things like the ambivert and so forth, I want to caution folks that you can go into a very deep hole. Like you could just chase this rabbit all over the place. And the reason why I caution for that is just like we always do here in Career Track, challenge, ourselves and each other. What's the value? So let's get it, right? Let's get into that. So, all right, we talked about strengths. And again, you can read this slide in regards to introverts and extroverts. I just put it up there because I really like the comparison. And this one was just a really great slide in regards to that. But on the left-hand side, you can really see that it's phrased in a certain way that I think is more positive, right? And the reason why I say that is I don't want folks to feel bad if they're an introvert. I think that I probably gear more towards the introvert, maybe even the ambivert, right? And gear more towards the introvert. And I think that shocks a lot of people because when they see me in social settings, I also feel like I can be selective and turn it on when need be, right? And show up. So this is a slide that I think starts changing some of that mentality from the 1900s into today, right? And what you'll see here as proof of that, again, well-known introvert leaders. And I don't think that any of you would be surprised by some of these names, but you may be surprised that, again, they lean more towards introverts. Now, again, I already had stated that, what measurement are they using, I think can be somewhat subjective. But again, I would take this at somewhat face value and say, all right, there is strengths of introverts. There are areas in which you can capitalize on. And again, the working with, Career Track and the coaches and so forth, really exploit those. You leverage those, right? And in certain situations, I think it can pay off. So the last section I do want to go over is capitalize, right? Let's turn this knowledge, let's turn these items, that self-reflection, even again, finding your source of energy, especially if you are an introvert, and let's capitalize. So here are 6 areas. And again, they made some fancy slides. I think that there's more, but this should get the creative juices going. This should give some focus, right? Again, pay attention to, I know folks have jumped out these big numbers or small numbers, depending on what you're looking for. It's the average. So again, these can fluctuate higher and lower, but and you can read through the section, but the perks, again, these are built out, or at least with the focus of, an introvert reader. So again, I think that's pretty interesting in the fact that, for flourishing in certain roles and environments, accountant, graphic designer, again, I've got some more here, medical records technician. I would probably say that, again, if you're looking at 38,000, right? Maybe that's great but for a lot of the folks that we have coming to us, right, in Eagle Group, I would say probably look for, a senior role in that and would help you get there. Dental technician, I didn't even know about this, but it sounds like, something that would be pretty promising. And then for the last couple, I think we hit on these quite a bit. And then these go into, again, some areas that we've got connections we can introduce folks to. And again, a lot of the skills, tools, and resources Alan shares each week and links to bolster up these. So again, I think it's interesting to see this. I think there are, obviously resources out there that help bolster up introverts. And really the last thing is, even if, I already declared that I feel like I probably lean more towards introvertism, I didn't know. And so without the research, maybe I wouldn't have classified myself. And if I, upon that research, I think I do have a little bit of items that I can leverage, even in discussions, reshaping my personal goals in business, or when I'm looking at making the next level. Do I really want to compete against an extrovert? Right? Are they just going to yell all day, or can I make a leg up in the fact that if I play my own tune and feel solid in it, then again I can do quite well. So with that being said, and the last slide, if you read through this, again, it's just more, I always like to end on the questions with the funny slide. But again, the reason why I like to be alone, I think that no pants might be actually a bigger slice of the pie.
That was a fantastic presentation.
There you go.
Thank you very much,
I didn't
Les.
want to go super long.